My name is Emily Carter. I'm 39 years old, and until 3 months ago, I truly believed I had lived an ordinary life. For 15 years, I was married to a man named Daniel. He always told me the same thing. Emily, we're barely surviving. Every month, he handed me exactly $500 for groceries, bills, and everything else. If I asked why we never had savings, he'd sigh, kiss my forehead, and say, I'm doing my best. So I stopped asking. I bought secondhand clothes. I skipped birthdays. I repaired old furniture instead of replacing it. I even worked part-time at the local library because I didn't want him carrying the whole burden alone. Everyone around us believed we were just another struggling middle-class family, including me. Then Daniel died. It happened on a rainy Tuesday morning. A heart attack. Just like that. One phone call, one hospital hallway, one signature, and 15 years of marriage were over. The weeks after his funeral felt unreal. People brought flowers, neighbors brought food, his co-workers hugged me and said Daniel was such an honest man. I believed every word because I had never known anything different until the day I opened the old metal filing cabinet in his home office. It was something I had never touched while he was alive. He always kept it locked. After his death, I finally found the tiny key inside his wallet. I wasn't looking for money. I was looking for insurance papers. Instead, I found a plain white envelope, no return address, only one sentence written across the front. If anything happens to me... My hands froze. Inside wasn't a letter. It was a single piece of paper. On it was a bank name I'd never heard Daniel mention. Underneath, an account number. Nothing else. No explanation. No balance. No note. Just the account number. At first I laughed. Maybe it was an old account. Maybe it had $20. Maybe he'd forgotten to close it years ago. I almost threw it away. But something inside me whispered, "Call the bank." The next morning, I dialed the number. A polite woman answered, "Good morning, Heritage Private Banking." Private banking? That already sounded wrong. I gave Daniel's full name. There was silence, then her voice changed completely. "One moment, Mrs. Carter." The line went quiet. She transferred me to someone else, a man, older, calm, professional. "Mrs. Carter, I'm Michael Hayes, Senior Account Manager. I understand you're calling regarding Mr. Daniel Carter." "Yes. I found an account number after my husband's death. I just wanted to know, was this account ever active?" There was another long pause. Then he spoke three words that made every hair on my body stand up. "We've awaited you." I stopped breathing. What did you say?" "We've been waiting for your call." I thought he'd mistaken me for someone else. There must be some mistake. My husband made about $500 a month. We never had savings. We rented our house. We drove a 12-year-old car. The manager didn't interrupt me. When I finally stopped talking, he quietly said, "Mrs. Carter, I believe you should come to the bank. There are several documents here that only you can receive." I stared at the phone. My heart was pounding. I had no idea that by the end of that day, like everything I believed about my husband would collapse. I barely remember the drive to Heritage Private Banking. The entire way there, I kept repeating one sentence in my head. This has to be a misunderstanding. Maybe Daniel had helped someone open an account. Maybe his name was on someone else's paperwork. Maybe the manager simply had the wrong person. Anything made more sense than believing my husband had kept a secret from me. When I arrived, the building didn't look like a normal bank. There were no long lines, no ATM outside, no advertisements, just polished marble floors, glass walls, and 2 security guards standing at the entrance. One of them asked politely, "Mrs. Emily Carter?" My stomach tightened. "Yes." He smiled. "Mr. Hayes is expecting you." Expecting me, again, that strange phrase. I hadn't even introduced myself inside the building. Someone already knew I was there. They escorted me upstairs to a private office. Michael Hayes stood as soon as I entered. He looked to be in his 60s, gray hair, perfect suit, calm eyes. But when he shook my hand, and there was something unusual about the way he looked at me, almost like he felt sorry for me. "Please sit down, Mrs. Carter." A young assistant brought coffee. I couldn't even touch it. Mr. Hayes placed a thick black folder on the desk. "I'll need to verify your identity before we continue." I handed him my passport. He checked it carefully, then he typed something into his computer. A few seconds later, the screen flashed green. He slowly closed the laptop. "It's confirmed. What exactly is confirmed? I asked nervously. He looked directly into my eyes. You are now the sole legal beneficiary. My heartbeat sped up. Beneficiary of what? Instead of answering, he slid the black folder toward me. Inside were dozens of papers, official bank statements, investment reports, property documents, stock certificates. I couldn't understand any of it. Then one page caught my attention. At the very top in bold letters were the words, current account balance. I looked at the number once, twice, 3 times. I honestly thought my eyes were broken. $28,417,963.82. $28 million. I laughed, not because it was funny, because my brain refused to believe what I was seeing. There has to be another Daniel Carter. There has to be. Mr. Hayes slowly shook his head. No, Mrs. Carter. This account belongs to your late husband. My hands began trembling. No. We couldn't even afford vacations. We argued over electricity bills. I wore second-hand shoes. He told me every single month that we were broke. Mr. Hayes lowered his voice. According to our records, Mr. Carter deposited money into this account for almost 15 years. 15 years, exactly the length of our marriage. Every month, every lie, every excuse, every time he said maybe next year, every birthday he skipped, every Christmas we celebrated with borrowed decorations, every dream we postponed, every single one had been a lie. Then Mr. Hayes opened another file. There is something else. I looked up. Now what? He hesitated. Mrs. Carter, this wasn't his only secret, and in that moment, I realized the money wasn't the worst thing Daniel had hidden from me. Not even close. I couldn't breathe. I stared at Mr. Hayes. What do you mean, it wasn't his only secret? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he opened another folder. Unlike the bank statement, this one contained photographs, old photographs. Some were nearly 15 years old, others looked recent. The first picture showed Daniel standing outside a beautiful beach house. He was smiling, not the tired smile he gave me every evening after work. This smile was different. He looked happy, relaxed, like a man without a single financial problem. I frowned. I've never seen this place before. Mr. Hayes nodded. I know. He placed another photograph on the table. This time, Daniel was stepping out of a black Rolls-Royce. I almost laughed again. A Rolls-Royce? The same man who used to complain every time our old Toyota needed an oil change? None of it made sense. Then I noticed something, a woman's hand, holding Daniel's arm. Her face had been cropped out, my stomach twisted. Who is she? Mr. Hayes looked uncomfortable. I'm afraid I don't know. But I do know your husband instructed us never to reveal these documents unless something happened to him. I felt cold. For the first time since arriving, I wasn't thinking about the money anymore. I was thinking about my marriage. Had I ever really known my husband? Or had I spent 15 years living with a complete stranger? Mr. Hayes quietly slid one final envelope across the desk. This was left specifically for you. Written on the front, in Daniel's handwriting, were 6 words. Only after my death, Emily. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter. The first sentence made my heart stop. Emily, if you're reading this, it means I've run out of time. Tears instantly filled my eyes. I continued reading. Before you judge me, you need to know one thing. Everything you believed about my life, was only half the truth. Half the truth? What did that even mean? I turned the page. The next sentence made the room spin. There's someone you need to meet. I looked up at Mr. Hayes. Who? He slowly reached into his desk drawer. Then he handed me a business card. Only one name was printed on it, Sarah Bennett. Underneath was a home address. I looked back at him. Who is Sarah? Mr. Hayes sighed deeply. Then he quietly said, Mrs. Carter, okay, I think she has been waiting for you for almost 10 years. I stared at the address, completely speechless, because for the first time, I realized the $28 million might not be the biggest secret my husband had taken to his grave. I sat in my car for nearly 20 minutes staring at the business card. Sarah Bennett, one name, one address, and suddenly my entire marriage felt like a mystery I'd never bothered to solve. Finally, I started the engine. The address was only 40 minutes away. It led me to a quiet neighborhood near the lake. Beautiful homes, perfect gardens, children riding bicycles, nothing looked unusual. I stopped in front of a small white house. The curtains were closed. My heart was pounding. I walked to the front door and knocked. Nothing. I knocked again. A few seconds later, the door slowly opened. Standing in front of me was a woman around my age. She had tired eyes, but the moment she saw my face, she froze, almost as if she had recognized me instantly. Neither of us spoke. Then she whispered, "Emily." I stepped back. "You know who I am?" She nodded slowly. I've known about you for almost 15 years. My knees nearly gave out. "What?" She looked down at the floor. "I was wondering when you'd finally come." I couldn't understand anything anymore. "Who are you?" Before answering, she looked behind her, then quietly said, "Please, come inside." I hesitated. Every instinct told me to leave, but I had already come too far. I stepped into the house. It was simple, clean, and strangely familiar. Then my eyes landed on the fireplace. There, among dozens of family photographs, was Daniel, smiling, standing exactly where a husband would stand. My heart stopped. I walked closer. One picture, then another, then another. Daniel appeared in every single one. Christmas, birthdays, beach trips, graduations. I turned toward Sarah. My voice was shaking. Why are there pictures of my husband all over your house?" Sarah's eyes filled with tears. She slowly sat down, looked at me, and quietly said, "Because Daniel wasn't just your husband." The room became completely silent. I felt my heartbeat in my ears. "What are you saying?" She closed her eyes, as if gathering the strength to say something she had carried for years. Then she opened a small wooden box. Inside were dozens of old letters, every single one written in Daniel's handwriting. She handed me the first letter. Across the top were 6 words. "To Sarah and our son." I couldn't breathe. "Our son?" Sarah nodded, unable to hold back her tears. "Yes, Emily, we have a son." I felt the entire room spinning around me. A son? Daniel had another child? Another family? No, this couldn't be happening. Then Sarah quietly reached for another photograph. She placed it in front of me. It showed Daniel holding the hand of a little boy about 9 years old. The boy had Daniel's smile, Daniel's eyes, Daniel's face. There was no denying it. He was his son. And I realized the $28 million had never been the biggest secret. His second family was. I couldn't stop staring at the little boy's picture. He looked almost exactly like Daniel, the same smile, the same eyes, the same dimple on his left cheek. My hands began shaking. I looked at Sarah. "So, everything was a lie?" She quickly wiped away her tears. "No, not everything. You deserve the truth." She walked into another room and returned, carrying a small black box. She placed it gently on the coffee table. Inside were dozens of documents, medical reports, hospital bills, insurance records. Then she handed me one sealed envelope. It was addressed to me in Daniel's handwriting. I slowly opened it. The first sentence made me burst into tears. "Emily, if you've reached this part, then you've already met Sarah." I kept reading. "Before you hate me, please let me explain. Daniel wrote that 16 years ago, before he had even met me. Sarah had been diagnosed with terminal cancer while she was pregnant. Doctors believed neither she nor the baby would survive. Daniel had spent almost everything he owned trying to save them. Miraculously, Sarah survived, so did the baby, but years later, Daniel met me. By then, Sarah had already married someone else who legally adopted the little boy. Daniel had promised never to destroy that family. He stayed away, watching his son grow only from a distance. I looked at Sarah. She nodded through tears. "It's true. My husband raised him. He never knew Daniel was his biological father." I whispered, "So Daniel wasn't living a double life?" She slowly shook her head. "No. He was protecting everyone." I continued reading the letter. The next paragraph answered the question that had haunted me for hours. "The money was never mine to spend. Daniel explained that after selling a technology company years earlier, he had placed nearly all of the money into a protected investment account. The account had one purpose: to protect everyone he loved. He was terrified that if people knew about the money, his family, my family, even criminals would come after us. He wanted us to live ordinary lives. He believed money destroyed families. Then I reached the final page. There. Daniel had written one final request. Emily, if you're reading this, please don't let the money destroy you too. Use it to give people a better life, not a richer one. I couldn't stop crying. For the first time, I finally understood my husband. He hadn't trusted money. He had trusted me. Sarah quietly reached across the table and held my hand. Then she smiled softly. Emily, there's one last thing. My son doesn't know who his real father was. And tomorrow is his 18th birthday. I slowly looked up. Tomorrow, everything was about to change. The next morning, I barely slept. Daniel's final letter never left my mind. Don't let the money destroy you too. I folded it carefully. I placed it back inside the envelope and drove with Sarah to the birthday party. Her son, Noah, was turning 18. He had absolutely no idea that today, his entire life was about to change. The party was simple: friends, family, a barbecue in the backyard, laughter everywhere. When Noah saw me, he smiled politely. You must be Mom's friend, I smiled back. I guess you could say that. After everyone finished eating, Sarah stood up. Her hands were shaking. There is something I've hidden from you your entire life. The backyard instantly became silent. Noah looked confused. What is it, Mom? She looked at me, then nodded. It was time. I slowly walked forward, holding Daniel's final letter. Noah, the man who raised you will always be your father. Nothing can ever change that. He nodded. I know. I took a deep breath, but the man who gave you life was someone else. His smile disappeared. He looked at Sarah, then back at me. What are you talking about? I handed him Daniel's letter. Read the first page. His hands trembled. He began reading. 30 seconds later, his eyes filled with tears. 1 minute later, he couldn't continue. He looked up at me. His voice barely worked. My biological father was Daniel Carter? I nodded. Yes. He covered his face and cried. Not because he was angry, because he finally understood why someone he had never met had quietly paid for every school fee, every medical bill, every opportunity, without ever asking for recognition. Then I reached into my handbag. I removed one final envelope. It contained the documents transferring half of Daniel's estate. I placed it in Noah's hands. He looked confused. I don't want the money. I smiled. I know. That's exactly why your father wanted you to have it. He looked at me with tears in his eyes. Then he did something I never expected. He hugged me tightly. I wish I could have met him. I couldn't stop crying. So do I. As the sun began to set, I visited Daniel's grave one last time. I placed fresh white roses beside his headstone. For a long time, I said nothing. Finally, I whispered, "You lied to me, but somehow, you still protected everyone." A gentle breeze moved through the cemetery. For the first time since his death, I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't confused. I finally understood. The $28 million had never been his greatest legacy. His greatest legacy was the lives he quietly changed without expecting anything in return. And I made one final promise: every dollar he left behind would help families who truly needed it, because money hidden in a bank account changes nothing, but kindness changes generations.